Hi everyone, I'm John Fischer. Very excited to bring you a new tutorial today. I've been playing with this plugin Stardust from aescripts.com. It's a modular particle system, super deep, very fun to play with. You can download a trial version, highly recommend doing that if you want to play along and see how this works. This is what we're going to be building today. All of the cubes, the type, the astronaut, all done in one layer with Stardust. Super cool. Let's jump into it. All right, let's go into After Effects right away. Let's start a new project. Call it Alien Cube. Some of the things we're going to be working with the plugin. Add a new solid. Learning about nodes, field deformers, a transform effect. We're going to animate some text in Stardust. Import an OBJ object. Lots of cool things. So let's jump right into it. So under Superliminal, Stardust. And if we do a little scroll forward, it should look very familiar to you if you use particular. The node-based might seem a little scary, but once you use it, honestly, I thought it was very intuitive, very easy to get used to. We're going to name everything right away just because as you start to add more instances, it definitely gets a little hard to keep track of, but if you name everything, super easy. So we're going to call these main cube. Let's add a field deformer, connect that to the particle, simple as that. Add a model object, connect that to the field, and we're just going to use a primitive, make it a cube. So now is where we start to change things. You're probably thinking it doesn't look anything like that. Well, this is very easy to get into. So we're going to bump the particles per second up to 1,000. We're going to knock the speed down so they stay closer. In the particles, we're going to change it to model. So now you should start to see small cubes. Bump the life seconds up just so they hang around longer. On the size we want a little bit bigger, we're going to double that. In the field now, it defaults to a sphere. For the field type, change it to box. And now we've got our initial cube. Because it is 3D, let's add a light. Point light is fine. We can adjust all this later. And you're starting to see, let's move the light down though. I want the, as if it's coming from the bottom almost. I'm starting to see some kind of cool stuff. Let's add a transform effect. And connect that to the model. We're going to animate the X and Y rotation from 0 and then over a second. Change it to 45 degrees. I always forget. I do this every single time, connected to the wrong thing. Let's disconnect that. Let's change that to the field. And there we go. Nice 3D cube. Let's add a camera right away because we're going to do a little animation with this. 35 millimeters, fine. Keep the depth of field off for now. We can add that later if we want. You know what? I'm actually going to change my mind on the camera. Let's add, I don't like the distortion it's doing on this one. Let's do a 50 millimeter. Keep the depth of field off. And that looks a little bit better. Add a null object. We're going to make that 3D. Connect our camera to the null. Again, name everything. Good habit to get into. And at 1 second, let's set a keyframe for position. I'm just going to back it off just a little bit so it's not filling up too much of the space. Let's go back so we can see the full thing. There we go. Set a keyframe. And then you can't quite see it, so you might have to go forward a little bit. And then let's just pull back. And around 3000, go to the first frame, change it, set some easy ease. And let's take a quick little RAM preview. So we've got a nice 3D cube coming at us in space, floating around. Cubes build on. I almost wondered, I think I want it to look a little, let's try 1500 for the emitter. Yeah, that fills it in a little bit better. I like that. So these are all updates quickly, very easy. Now it does come with primitive cubes, and for the most part that works fine, but I want an outline around it. So I'm going to go into Cinema, just add a cube, and export it as an OBJ. Nothing complicated. Just replace it since we've got default settings are fine. Let's jump back into After Effects. Let's add a new emitter. We're going to call this Outline 1. And let's go back into, no, I don't think we're going to, just keep everything easy to get to. All right, so now our emitter, we're going to need a particle. Tie that to our emitter. Call that particle outline 1. Now under our emitter, we're going to change that to an object, and this is where we're going to import our cube. Face outline is fine. Particles per second, just bump it up a little bit. For the particle, we're going to change that to model so we can see our cubes. Let's go in here and pull the transform effect into that, so that way it will now match this. We're going to need to beef up the size of the emitter quite a bit so we can see what we're doing. Right now, and the speed is way too fast, so let's knock the speed down to 5 so it's not emitting very fast. Put the speed up, or the size of X to 275, and now you can see the outline a little bit. Particles, we want those bigger, so let's bump those up to 20, and that's, now we've got a nice outline around our cube. Let's go back into our main emitter. We're going to do kind of our main particle. We're going to do a color correction, but let's add some color. So you can change the color there, random from gradient. There's some very nice presets. We'll use the one that I used for the example at the start, just so it can kind of look like that. So you get some nice color in there. Let's zoom in and see that. Looks good. And in our particle, let's kind of pick a color there and then adjust that, make it a little bit brighter so we can see what's going on. All right, so we've got a nice effect there. Little RAM preview. We've got this 3D cube flying at us in space, doing a nice little rotation. You know, we're building a nice little object, and everything is working nice and fast, nice and smooth. Looks good. All right, so now we're going to duplicate, because we want to have bigger cubes on the corner. So let's duplicate our emitter, duplicate our particle, connect that. Let's go into the emitter, change that. Change the object properties. We want to change that from the outline to the vertices in the corner. So on our particle now, we want to make that bigger so that we can see it. Let's bump that up to 35. Take the transform effect, connect that to the particle, and boom, right there in the corner, matching everything we need. Let's adjust the color of this a little bit. Since we're going to do a global color correction, we'll just kind of make it orange for now so you can see it. Zoom in on that. And that's looking very nice so far. I'm really liking what we got going on. Now, I think some random cubes flying around in space would look kind of cool too. So let's, again, duplicate our emitter and change the name of that to random. Duplicate our particle. Connect that to the emitter. And let's just take the transform effect and connect it right away so we can see what we're doing. All right. Now for the random, we want to change it back off the vertices back to volume. We want to bump the particles per second way up to 1500. And you can see they're just kind of sitting along the outside, so we're going to put the speed that they fly out further, bump that up to 50. You can adjust that depending on how far out you want them to go. And the size we're also going to put, let's try 450 for now and see how that looks. Very nice. Change the emitter to once. Do a quick preview and we can see we've got these random cubes also outside our main cube. And that's looking very nice. Everything is rotating as one. Very cool. Let's roll these down. Now what I'd like to do is add some type to this. I'm just going to go with Stardust for now. I'm just using T-Star Pro in case you're wondering. Let's just align this to the center of everything. And turn that layer off then. Let's go back to Stardust. You know what, let's go into that. So now we're gonna add a new emitter. And let's call this one emitter type. Add a new particle. Connect that to our emitter. Change that one. Named that to particle type. For the emitter type, we're going to change that to text mask, and we're going to use the type that we just built. Layer properties, we need to go down to layer properties and select Stardust. And for the particle now, circle is fine. Let's keep working on the emitter for the type. I want to change it to the edge. Particles per second, we're gonna have to crank that up quite a bit so that we can see our type. Try 1300. The speed is obviously blasting way too fast, so we're just gonna actually turn that off completely. And there's our type for the particle. Particle type is way too big, so we're gonna need to knock that down. Let's try 2. Zoom in a little bit so we can see that. And that's starting to look pretty good. Because we're in 3D, we're going to have to adjust the origin. So in the emitter, let's pull that out away from the cube so it's in front. There we go. And for the particle type, let's bump the lifespan up because we want this to hang around. We don't want this to keep disappearing. And that's starting to look kind of nice, kind of a little different effect. Let's change the size randomness on this one to 50. And let's look at the particles. Maybe we need to beef that even more. Let's try 2000. Edge weighted. Speed, everything is looking close. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's animate the path. Let's at 1 second, because we don't want to appear right away. Let's set the trim path to 100. Set a keyframe. And at 3 seconds, let's set that to 0. And that'll give us a nice little right-on effect. You can see that. That's looking good. All right. All right, so let's go a little bit smaller. Let's do a little RAM preview now so we can kind of see what we've got going on with. So we've got the cube flying in at us. And then the type writing on. I can see I need to adjust the transform effect to the random particles again. The type we're not going to connect, and this is why it's the node base thing is really cool, because I want the type to be centered. I want to do a nice little right-on effect, and as the rest of it's rotating, then the transform effect is affecting everything else but the type. So that's very, very cool. So now let's start to add a little bit of compositing to this, so it starts to look kind of a little bit cooler than what we've got. So let's turn that off for now. Let's add a background, new solid called background. We're going to add a gradient ramp to that. Colors are fine. Just kind of want this in the corner. And we're going to pull this way down here, just to kind of give it there's this little light coming from down below. Now, if you've got I've got some stars. You can find these in a lot of places. I'm going to just layer that. I'm not going to make it 3D or anything like that. You can knock the opacity down to 50%. We've got this nice star feel. Let's move the background down below. Got the stars over the top. That's looking pretty cool. Do a quick little preview. We've got some good stuff going on. I've also got, let's add a little atmosphere. It's called Mo Smoke. And it's just some fog in the corner, which I think is kind of cool. We're going to change it to screen for the mode. We're going to animate the opacity from 0 to 100. Again, let's do a quick little RAM preview. So we've got this nice alien cube floating at us. We're going to want to add an astronaut. That definitely slows things down, so we'll kind of might not show you exactly, but kind of give you an overview of how I did that. I'm working on a 3.5-year-old laptop, so as you start to add too much stuff, and the heavier OBJ objects definitely have an effect on this. But so we've got a nice little thing going on here. It's pretty cool. And we want to, I think a flare would be kind of nice. I always like flares. If you've got Video Copilot optical flares, change that to 3D. For the options, I'm just going to go under, I like the conspiracy in mind control. Change that from off black to transparent. And we're going to kind of adjust it so it's kind of popping in the corner here. And just kind of move it around until it looks pretty good. Let's add some flicker. Let's do 50 in the speed, 50 in the amount. So we have a nice little flicker. It's tracking everything, tracking in beautifully. All right, I'm liking how that's looking. Let's add some color correction now to this and start to tie this together. Add a new adjustment layer. Let's call this CC. And the first thing we're going to do is add a levels effect. We're just going to kind of crush the blacks and whites a little bit just to give it a little more atmosphere. I think it might be time to duplicate our light as well. Move that over to this side. Take the opacity down on this one to 65. Yeah, that's looking good. Go back to our color correction, check out. We can maybe even crush blacks and the whites a little bit more. Add a curves effect. See how that looks. And now for a global color correction, let's add the, let's see, color balance. And all we're going to do is take out some of the reds and bump up the greens and blues. You can just kind of play around with what feels good to you. I'm not giving it a super strong, but just kind of to tie it together a little bit better. And I like how that looks. Let's do a preview again and see how everything is tying together. And the last step we need to do then, well, there's a couple steps. I think we could still make the, I think we can still make the cube look even a little bit cooler. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's go back to our Stardust. And I'm going to solo that for now, just to try to speed things up a little bit. Let's go under the presets. Presets are fun. Under replica, corners 2, and you can replace, which would replace everything in there. We don't want to do that. We want to add to it. And once again, let's name everything so that these are easy to find. We're going to call that emitter lines, particle lines, and replica lines. Let's check our nodes. We're just going to kind of move things around, so keep this organized. If you have an extra monitor, this would certainly be helpful, but not necessary. And we're going to tie our transform effect into this so that it matches our cube. Excellent. So let's go down, find our emitter for lines, and we're going to need to adjust the size of the X, Y, and Z so they better match our scene. Cut these in half. And now they're inside our cube, and that's looking very, very nice. I like that little extra effect in there, as if there's some lightning, some other effect going on. We're going to go into the replica now, and we're just going to double this. 23, let's go to 46. And double the density as well. So that's just a heavier effect. That looks very cool. I really like that effect. Adds a lot to this, I think. All right, now the last thing, at half res, it looks a little brighter, but that's why we check it at full res, go back and forth, kind of give you a better feel for what it looks like. Now the last thing we want to do is add our astronauts, and I'm just going to kind of punch in the numbers that I did with that and show you how I did that, because it definitely slows things down. I'm going to turn all of these layers off because it gets a little heavy. So emitter, astronaut. Let's learn how to spell. Add a particle, connect that, call that astronaut, and our model again, astronaut. And just in case You don't have an astronaut? Well, luckily for you, if we go online to raulmarks.com, he did the semi-permanent titles. I don't know if you've seen these or not. If you haven't, highly recommend checking them out. Awesome, awesome. He also did a behind the scenes, a making of. And if you go to his Vimeo page where that exists, he's got a free download of his astronaut. So I downloaded that, took it into Cinema. I stripped it of all the cameras, lights, and things like that. And that's what we're going to be importing. So for the emitter for the astronaut, point is fine. We do want to just emit once in 1 particle per second. And speed is 0. For our particle, let's change that to model. And our model is going to be the astronaut. So we're going to import our spaceman. I call him Spaceman Stardust, OBJ. Okay. And it's going to take a little bit of time to think. The transform effect so that he fits. We're going to tie up to our astronaut. And this is, again, the beauty of how all of this, here's the materials. And things are starting to slow down a little bit now. This is why we're not going to show everything about it. But in our astronaut, I kind of know, in fact, let's put the caps lock key on and hopefully we can keep it from updating while we try to adjust the settings and kind of show you what we're doing a little bit. In the model properties, there you can kind of see them. Way too big. Put the size down to 5. And I've already played with the position, so I kind of know where he's supposed to be. So for the origin, 908 and 564. For the Z, minus 1,000. And I think the other thing we want to do is in the particle, just increase the lifespan so that we see them longer. All right, let's take off the cap locks key and see if that adjusted. But he should be sitting in space, kind of in front of the cube. We just kind of want to give a feel for like this big, massive cube in space, and there's this astronaut looking at it. It's just very fun. I've been playing with this plugin for the last month or so and still learning so much about it. It's so deep, but so fun. And there he is. And if we turn on everything else, everything should update. If you highly recommend downloading the trial at the very least, play with it. It's incredible to me. This is all one layer in After Effects, Stardust. You've got this 3D cube, this astronaut, super fun to play with. Highly recommend, check it out, and thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And until next time, we'll see you when we see you. All right, take care.